Luis Scott-Vargas, one of the game's best players and most well-known players, full stop. They're playing against each other using the same trio of colors here, Cedric, but they do have a slightly different take on the archetype.
Well, the thing here coming into this tournament is that a lot of people figured that Jund was one of the best color combinations, and that Jund's Sacrifice was one of the best things to be doing. Now, a couple of weeks ago, it was all Bolas' Citadel. How can we get this thing onto the battlefield as quickly as possible? We saw players like Oliver too and many others on Twitch streaming and just saying, I'm going to ramp this bad boy out. And once I do, if I find a Woe Rider, it's done. Well, then people started playing Grafdigger's Cage and a bunch of other ways to combat that, and it turned out it was a little bit flimsy. However, Kowalski is saying, you know what? I think people went way too far on Bolas' Citadel being done. I still think it can be done, and people actually don't have the right hate now. And he's in to our top 8 with that strategy, and you see the namesake artifact in his hand. It can be, and oftentimes is, a key card in a mirror like this.
Yeah, man, life comes at you fast. And even though it felt like this deck was in our rearview mirror, like you said, only a week and a half or 2 weeks ago was it the more popular build of Jund. Well, it is here, and right now, Gregor Kowalski has put himself in a fantastic position. The winner of the match is going to move on to round 3 here in the lower, and that is going to put them up against Seth Manfield. So it never stops for these players. They have tough opponents at every single match at this point, and it's just really up to these two to see who's going to advance and who is going to go home. This is the long road to try to make it to our championship match. It is a tough one to get through, but one match at a time, one foot in front of the other, and off they go. Luis Scott-Vargas has, what does he have? He's got Woe Strider and a Goat with a Witch's Oven, facing down a Priest of Forgotten Gods as well as Gilded Goose. But I'm looking down at the hand there for Kowalski, who is holding on to a Bolas's Citadel and could cast it next turn.
And of the hands to look at, that one's the more impressive of the two because, again, Bolas' Citadel's in the grip, and the ability to play it next turn, almost no questions asked, because even if Luis is able to get rid of one of these creatures, let's say the Priest of Forgotten Gods dies, well, we've got Phyrexian Tower to sacrifice the Goose. The Goose can sacrifice a food before that. That'll give you 3 mana, 3 of it which would be black, and then you've got 3 other lands in the battlefield. If you kill the Goose, well, sacrifice the Priest of Forgotten Gods to the Phyrexian Tower. That gives me 2 black, play a land. That gives me the other 4 necessary. You just need 1 more black, which the Woodland Cemetery can fulfill. And then it's off to the races, and most importantly here, Marshall, 17 life here for Kowalski. So a lot to work with. Hopefully his deck cooperates.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting, because if you're in Luis's seat, there's nothing you can do. As you perfectly outlined there, Cedric, you could not keep Kowalski from casting this, so if he has it, he has it, is kind of the mentality for Luis. The interesting thing for Gregor, though, right? Look at this. If he plays the Bolas' Citadel, he does not have ways to interact with the top of his library currently, and he just has to keep hitting. It's just one of those situations where it's like, I just have to get there.
Well, I'll say this. His hand doesn't really do all that much else, so
agree.
Let's give it a shot. Now,
windmill it.
You sacrifice the Gilded Goose. Now remember, Mayhem Devil, it works on your opponent's stuff as well as yours. So that can gum things up a little bit here, because if you sacrifice that food token, there will be a trigger. We see that. You sacrifice a creature to Phyrexian Tower, there will be a trigger as well. So we'll see where this trigger does go. Now, Luis is a pretty smart guy, so I think he knows what's going on here, which is, oh, you're making a bunch of black mana. Okay, I'm going to ting you with that other one and bring it down to 16, and that is not the best card to see to start this show here.
Wow. Another Bolas' Citadel on top of the library means if he wants to cast it, it is going to cost him dearly. 6 life is going to drop him down to 10, but there's a Woe Strider on top next.
Okay, so you keep that. You obviously play the, oh my gosh, he's
and
doing
a
so
collected
well.
company. A very costly one, though, because as much as the Woe Strider is exciting for manipulating the top of your library, it is not exciting when your opponent has a Mayhem Devil and you're dropping down to 3 life.
Now remember, Luis right now, he can sacrifice a Go token. He can sacrifice a Go token, bring you down to 2. I can sacrifice something to Witch's Oven, which, you know, if the Woe Strider or the Mayhem Devil bring you down to 1. I can do those things. Oh my god, what a waste.
Oh no, Gregor's Kowalski only hits Llanowar Elves off of the collected company, and another Woe Strider on top would leave him dead.
And also remember, if Kowalski wants to manipulate his library with Woe Strider, trigger your Mayhem Devil. Yeah, he's dead. He's dead. The Mayhem
Devil would just kill him if he put 1 trigger on the stack for Luis, because Luis could generate 2 triggers of his own, and that's going to do it. Gregor's Kowalski hits that Citadel a turn early, and it ended up killing him because he saw another one on top. You know, I want to go back, by the way, not that there was like any controversy with the play, but the fact that Luis got 1 additional ping on Gregor's, you know, that can make the difference sometimes off of that Mayhem Devil. Every little bit counts there.
That is brutal. And also, you mentioned that 1 ping that went upstairs. The other ping is also really important too here, Marshall, the ping that went to that Priest of Forgotten Gods with the sacrificing the food token, because if that happens and then there's another trigger, you kill the priest. You know, let's say that's Kowalski sacrifices the Gilded Goose to the Phyrexian Tower. You finish off the priest, which would have been active, and the priest actively being active there could, you know, maybe help you out in that situation a little bit, but it didn't. So Luis, I think, did a nice job of managing his Mayhem Devil triggers. But that goes to show you sometimes, folks, that as powerful as Bolas the Citadel can be, and it is an extremely powerful card when it's on the battlefield, it isn't always just I win, you lose. That time for Kowalski, it backfired in a very big way. He raced to that powerful legendary artifact, and he lost the game.
Exactly. Incredible stuff. You know, usually you think your worst case is, well, I hit a couple of lands in a row, or I hit a land or whatever, you know, that stops you from continuing. But in this case, that Bolas the Citadel sitting there staring back at Kowalski was just a disaster. And he's got to get himself back together here, because Luis Scott-Vargas is now up 1-0. And I got to say, from Luis's seat, that one was kind of a gimme, right? He did not have a lot of meaningful game decisions that game. Kowalski hit 6-drop in the 4-drop that produced a total of 1 mana worth of creatures out of those hits. It was a miserable time for Kowalski with those Citadels.
So the big question too, right? I'm sure Kowalski is asking himself, some people at home are asking too, is, okay, well, what if you just leave that Bolas the Citadel on top and you just, you know, you pass, right? You just say go, and then I'll go further next turn. Well, what Luis is going to do there, because Kowalski's battlefield's not particularly good, is he's going to attack with the Ghost Rider. He's going to attack with the Mayhem Devil. He's going to deploy another Mayhem Devil because he had that in his hand, or something else depending on what he draws, and he's going to actually deal you at least 6 points of damage, and probably more than that on his turn with his attacks and his triggers. So you've got to actually play that Bolas the Citadel and hope that things actually break your way. So it was a rock and a hard place, and unfortunately here for Kowalski, he's down a game, but he's off to what I would say is a substantially better start here in game number 2.
Yeah, much, much better for Kowalski, and much worse for Luis, who kicked things off with a mulligan to 5, and is now really going to be kind of all in on Collected Company next turn. Now, that's a fine place to be. You can have some really fantastic hits off of it in this list, but it is going to come down to that, at least for this opening stage here in game number 2. On the other side of the battlefield, you see things coming to a bit of a halt here for Kowalski, as he needed to hit a land drop here to play Company himself.
Yeah, didn't really break out the way that he really wanted it to, so it's just going to be a Blood Artist, and now we'll see if he actually wants to activate the Priest or not. Priest is fine right now. It's not my favorite.
Interesting if he does. He will, if he hits an untapped land, actually be able to cast the Company this turn.
There's a high ceiling on it.
And he gets a bunch of Blood Artist triggers too. So, and he gets a Midnight Reaper. Yeah, this is looking good here for Kowalski. He's just going to go for it.
Yeah, the turn isn't bad. I mean, it's kind of interesting insofar as you'd maybe rather catch like a Mayhem Devil or something like that, and killing a Midnight Reaper does allow Luis to get a card. So in that respect, it's like, okay, well, how good did I really do here? But I think keeping the battlefield clear, you have another card to deploy, even if you brick on the land in Priest of Forgotten Gods, and if you hit the land, the upside is massive. So I, like you, kind of like going for it, but he's not gonna. I'm a little surprised.
I'm gonna miss that land drop for the turn, and a second copy of Collected Company now for Scott-Vargas is very interesting, because this opening hand from him really didn't have a whole lot going on. You can see Midnight Reaper was his only play thus far, but I'll tell you what, if Luis gets to go Company into Company, that is how you get out of a mulligan to 5 right quick.
Well, we'll see if his deck and the RNGG does cooperate. We'll have to see.
Yeah, Luis running a little bit lighter on hits. Ooh, there's a Woodland Cemetery off the top, by the way. He would have hit it. But, you know, the Collected Company in his deck hits just north of 80% of the time 2 creatures, but there are creatures that are less impressive than other ones in this particular build. Other builds, not necessarily of Jund, but of other decks that run Collected Company run even more creatures, but they don't have to make room for Claim the Firstborn and Witch's Oven like this deck does. Here we go.
I'm curious if we're going to see the Priest activation now in response to the company.
That would make sense. You get some junker down on the battlefield. Getting this Midnight Reaper right now is about the cleanest you can do. And we're going to see it.
And it looks like Kowalski is putting a huge premium on keeping the Blood Artist on the battlefield. It makes a lot of sense. It's a very important card in this matchup.
Does he? And then he's going to play the company when?
That is a very good question.
We'll see. Was that another Collected Company? So Luis has mulliganed to 5, but has found 1 Collected Company as opener, and now 2 more after that?
Yeah, I mean, he's found a bunch, but again, as good as company is, and I know you know this because you've been doing this long enough, it can hit in a big way, and it can be a swing and a miss.
Yeah, poor Kowalski saw that in game number 1 when he cast Collected Company and only found a Llanowar Elves. That was the best he could do. Now he's doing much better here. Not only did he hit twice, but he hit a Mayhem Devil and a Gilded Goose. But remember, Luis's Collected Company still on the stack here and ready to resolve. Can he do better?
Oh, there you go.
No,
there you go.
It's just another Dreadhorde Butcher. So he's going to have to reload with another Collected Company here. And that's what you're talking about there. Woad Strider plus Mayhem Devil. Much more what Luis was looking for here.
Yeah, well, when you get the opportunity to take a look at 12 cards, you'd think you'd hit something. Now, the first one was a swing and a miss, but the second one was substantially better. And we know now we got dueling Mayhem Devils with sacrifices up and down and all around. Best place to start here for Luis is this attack, it looks like.
Right, and this is just going to force the issue because the problem is that if Kowalski lets it through, it becomes a 2-2. Luis can sacrifice it to the Woad Strider and take out something on the other side, including the Mayhem Devil if he'd like. So Kowalski says, well, if you're just going to do that anyway, I may as well get this stupid Dreadhorde Butcher off the battlefield and walk it.
Dreadhorde Butcher is a card that has looked really, really good for Scott-Vargas and Nassif and other players that have played this build of this Jund Sacrifice deck. It's a card that we didn't see a lot of play in Standard. It's all playing, Rakdos Sacrifice decks. And a card that does have a pretty high ceiling, but in matchups like this where, damage is flying around, there's sacrifice effects on the battlefield, it has looked really, really, really good. And Marshall, as you mentioned, you have to block it because the bigger it grows, the worse it is for you. And when you do block it, you get the damage from combat, you get the damage from the trigger. So there's just a lot of upside of having that card in this deck, and you're seeing it start to wreak havoc on this battlefield.
That's right, and it's going to allow Luis to maneuver his Mayhem Devil and his Woad Strider to kill the opposing Mayhem Devil so he can breathe a sigh of relief there, though as we see, Kowalski has options of his own with an overgrown tomb off the top of the library that does give him access to Bolas's Citadel. Backfired on him last time, but it might be worth it here. He also has Claim the Firstborn that he could use to steal the Devil and kill it. And then on top of all that, he has a Priest of the Forgotten Gods going too.
Now, isn't it fun? Isn't it fun that we get maybe round 2 with the Bolas's Citadel? The first time it did not go so well. But there is a second copy of Bolas's Citadel in hand, and I think Kowalski's only left 2 in after sideboard. So if you're looking for positives, it's like, well, I can't run into that again, so that's not so bad.
Luis is going to use the Mayhem Devil ping here that came from the food being sacrificed to the goose to kill Blood Artist. And I'll tell you what, that seems really important here. That Blood Artist was doing serious work, not only on Luis's life total, but also on Kowalski's as he's at 24, and he's going to be setting up for a Bolas's Citadel here.
Yeah, and this is really, really nice play, too, from Kowalski, because he's going to take the Woad Strider with the Claim the Firstborn. He's going to sacrifice the Gilded Goose and the Woad Strider to the Priest activation. That'll take care of the Mayhem Devil. More importantly, it's also going to give Greg a couple of more mana to be able to deploy the Bolas's Citadel, as you mentioned. And, I don't think he's going to whiff again.
Yeah, I doubt it. With the other one in hand, he looks like he's in good shape. Downside here, minor, but he does give Luis a couple more pings on the way out with the Devil. But this way, he gets both creatures off the battlefield, and that is really critical.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be empty battlefields for both players with one notable exception. A Bolas's Citadel will be on the battlefield with 23 life here for Kowalski. And let's see what he can do. First one off is a Gilded Goose. Not bad. There's a land. That's not what he wants to see. Another Gilded Goose. Still at 21 life.
There we go.
Mayhem Devil. Oh, but there's another land, and he has to pass the turn back.
Well, that's not a bad first run right now. This company, it's got to find something really good. I don't even know what the best combination of cards can be here for Luis, because even if it is like that Reclamation Sage that some of those players have been playing here this weekend, there's the backup Bolsa Citadel in the hand. So it's not even the ultimate spike that you would think it would be.
Yeah, it's funny that that was like a not amazing Bolas's Citadel turn, and it still was 3 cards and a land, you know, effectively drawing 4, but not only drawing, also casting them. And Luis recognizing that it was not enough off of that collected company, and he just decided to scoop him up, knowing that there's no way he's beating another turn with the Citadel, given what Kowalski had hit. So he's going to scoop him up, and as is custom here in our top 8, we're going to get a game 3.
Yes, we are. And you see the split here for Greg. It's 2-2 on the Citadel, so it looks like I had that one correct. I wasn't 100% positive, but now I am here for game number 3. And again, it is a very good card in the mirror match, but I will say this, it is a little bit worse when you're on the draw as well. Because Luis will be on the play, has probably had the opportunity to get maybe 1 or 2 attacks in, bring your life total down a little bit low, and then it can look a lot like what game number 1 did look like. That said, I do like the matchup here for Kowalski because he is drawing towards Bolas's Citadel, and because he does have a powerful card like Blood Artist with all those sacrifice triggers going around here in this matchup. So should be a pretty compelling game number 3, as both players are pretty happy with their opening hands.
Yeah, they both look really good. Luis is going to do not a whole lot in these first few turns, but he does have a Devil, he does have a Woe Strider, and he has Collected Company. Nice there for Kowalski to get something good down on turn 2, as Luis just basically did nothing for the turn. We're going to see Woe Strider kick things off, and he drew Dreadhorde Butcher for the turn. So things looking good for Luis for the foreseeable future, but they're looking very good for Kowalski as well. Double Collected Company, and now a Scavenging News off the top of the library as well.
Yeah, this looks really, really, really good. This is going to shape up to be a pretty interesting game. A lot of decisions here, assuming lands and everything else cooperate, and we'll see what the collected companies look like too. But Luis on the battlefield pretty quickly here with the best card so far, as he's taking a couple sips of that drink with the Woe Strider, getting pretty comfy here for G3.
Yeah, this is already a good situation here for Kowalski, who can claim the Firstborn, the Woe Strider, play an untapped Blood Crypt, play a Blood Artist, or I suppose if he wanted an Ooze or a Gilded Goose, I would expect not the Scavenging News, but at any rate, and then sacrifice them, leaving the board empty for Luis Scott-Vargas.
Yeah, interesting spot. I think if I'm Greg, I'm claiming the Woe Strider, of course. Luis is going to sacrifice that Go token. You play the Goose. You sacrifice the Goose. You get your food token. You sacrifice the Goose and the Strider. Let's get that damage in too. I can't believe I almost forgot about attacking.
Yeah,
whoa,
come on, Cedric.
Whoa is me. And then you have 2 black, so then you can play the Blood Artist post with the mana that you do get. So
yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, this doesn't look too bad.
Really great turn 3 here for Gregor Kowalski, but there's a little bit of bad news on the horizon for him as well. Luis scried with that goat off of the Woe Strider. He put it on top, and Kowalski doesn't know, but we do. It's another collected company, and Luis already has land number 4 in hand. So, you know, Kowalski's going to be facing down back-to-back companies while he casts his own back-to-back companies as well.
Yeah, I mean, real shame here for Luis, though. Nothing to do on his main phase, so I guess all you can do, Marshall, is just play your 4th land and pass it back, right? That's it.
Yeah, nothing to do. I guess Kowalski just going to assume here, nothing doing for Luis Scott-Vargas. He's just going to pass the turn. And the most obvious collected company in the world is going to go on the stack, and it's going to be responded to by the second most obvious collected company ever. And good hits here for Kowalski, finding Devil and Woe Strider. Those are 2 perfect hits for him. Can Luis match him? You can see he's fallen behind, and he cannot. He only hits a lone Mayhem Devil, and that is susceptible to Priest of Forgotten Gods. It could easily be gone here. Although Kowalski is going to pass the turn back, he can always respond to Collected Company if needed.
Yeah, and then remember, because there's a Mayhem Devil on the battlefield there for Luis, and because the triggers trigger from both your sacrifice effects and your opponent's sacrifice effects, things can get a little bit messy here for Kowalski. But what I will say is that he is significantly advantaged in this spot, and if Luis does make a move that Gregor is not happy with, he'll obviously respond with a Priest activation. So a really, really good spot here for our Jund Citadel player.
Luis is just going to pass the turn back after having drawn a Midnight Reaper, but you can see plain and simple, he's just outclassed on the battlefield right now. Both players with a Mayhem Devil, but Gregor's Kowalski has 4 other creatures, including an active Priest of Forgotten Gods. He's even got a Blood Artist going there too, and this is just going to be so difficult for Luis to come back from. He's really leaning all of his hopes on a Collected Company to try to grind his way back through, but it just feels like if they're going to throw resources at each other, that's going to favor Kowalski by too much.
I totally agree with you on that one. And, playing that Gilded Ghost pre-combat before anything makes a lot of sense, because if you're going to sacrifice 2 creatures in this battlefield, it's going to be that Goat token is one and Gilded Goose is the other, because Blood Artist, Ghost Rider, and Mayhem Devil are far too powerful to throw in the graveyard unless you absolutely have to. So by getting that Goose onto the battlefield, now you've got the perfect thing to throw away to the Priest in combination with that Goat token. And if I'm Kowalski, I'm feeling amazing about this game, and I'm going to respond to Collected Company with another one of my own once again. See what I get. 2 premium hits.
2 more premium hits. Can Luis hit well off of this one? This is for sure one of his last hopes here, as he needs to hit perfect. And even then, I don't know how he gets out of this mess, given the impressive board state that Kowalski's been able to put together.
Actually, I think it's entirely possible Luis is dead right now, because every creature that sacrifices 3 damage. So it's Mayhem Devil, that's 2, and then don't forget about Blood Artist as well. So
you're right.
So this, I'm sacrificing 2 creatures. That's gonna be 6 triggers, and then throw in the Priest for the 2. That's 7 and 8. So that's gonna bring Luis down from 15 to 7 already, and that doesn't even get into sacrificing anything else.
You're right. No, you're totally right, Cedric. And you see, this is Kowalski just being careful. He's already starting to point triggers upstairs. He knows that he can win this game at this point. It's just a matter of making sure that he does the math correctly. But you know what? This is fairly risk-free anyway, because it's not like Luis is going to come out and kill him out of nowhere here from 16, given the Blood Artist triggers, buoying his life total, and everything else that's going to happen here. It looks like there's no way out for Luis Scott-Vargas at this point, and that Gregor's Kowalski is going to advance to face down Seth Manfield in the next round. He just has to get through all of these triggers. And I have to go back to what we said before, Cedric. Imagine commentating this in paper. I mean, look at all those triggers.
Yeah,
There's
we'd be
12
having
triggers on the stack right now.
13,
14, 15, 16.
It's a lot easier when I was younger, 15, 16, 17, and my brain could just boom, 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 keep track of all this stuff. Active player, non-active player, app-nap, as they used to say. But now, thank goodness it's in front of me on the computer and on Arena, where I see it all over there. This is easy breezy.
That's right. Luis surveying the scene here to try to figure out exactly how this is going to end up going as we work our way up to now 21 triggers on this stack. 15 of them need to be Kowalski's, and this match will be his. Let's let everything kind of play itself out here as we continue our climb to now 26 triggers on the stack. We're up to 27.
That's a lot of those. That's
30.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had 30 things from a creature-based deck on the stack like this, but now they're going to start resolving, and you're going to see Luis's life total plummet. Well, Kowalski's will go down a bit too, but he is going to be getting a bunch of extra triggers off of the Blood Artist that was there, and this surely has to be it for Luis Scott-Vargas.
He's even has the opportunity to do some scrying there with Ghost Rider, because he was sacrificing his creatures. That going to leave Ghost Rider on top, and Luis is going to let this play all the way out. Unfortunate end to his tournament, but I will say that I liked Kowalski's build for the mirror, and even though he did kill himself in game number 1 with Olsen Citadel, able to get the job done in games 2 and 3. And as you said, moving on to face Seth